First Samuel 4:21. Let's read it together after the count of 2. 1 to go. And she named the child Ichabod, saying, the glory is departed from Israel, because the ark of God was taken, and because of our father-in-law and her husband. Let's repeat it again. And she named the child Ichabod, saying, the glory of God is departed. Why? Because the ark of God was taken, and because of her father-in-law and her husband. Glory killers. Glory killers. Killers of glory. Killers of glory. We have been able to establish by introduction yesterday that glory is the tangible manifestation of an intangible God. We have been able to expatiate on that in all my subsequent or previous teaching on glory. That glory is the overloaded. Glory is when God comes in his bodily, tangible, touchable form. It's called glory. When Jesus showed up, the first miracle that Jesus did, which was turning water into wine, was a manifestation of glory. That was why the Bible says in John chapter 2 verse 11 that this beginning did Jesus in Cana of Galilee. This beginning of miracles did Jesus in Cana of Galilee and manifested forth his glory, and his disciples believed on him. God cannot draw men into his church, into his house, unless he reveals a dimension of himself, which is called glory. But to access the glory of God, you need light. No wonder the Bible says in 2 Corinthians 3:18 that we are with open face. Somebody say open face. Behold the glory of God as in a mirror. When we get that glory with open face, he said we are transformed from glory to glory. What does that tell you? When God glory to a man, he does it on the platform of light, of information, through pains. While they go through trials and troubles of life, the enemy allow the trials and the troubles to become their focus. And when the troubles and the trials of life become your focus, you lose your place in God. Now, what the devil does, let me explain this very clearly by giving you a literal example. Moses was a man who was born by the river. He was born by the riverbank, placed by the riverbank. And as a little child, he was there until Pharaoh's daughter carried him. While he was in Egypt, he was supposed to learn the craft of Egypt. He learned the craft of his soul. And that was why when he looked at the Egyptian, he looked at the Israeli, he took side with the Israeli because he killed the Egyptian. There was a fire burning in his soul, and that fire was in his soul. But as he ran from Egypt, he went into the house of Jethro. When he found Jethro, the fire was still burning in his soul. But Jethro told him, I have a business proposal for you. That was not the plan of God for Moses. The plan of God for Moses was that Moses should go with that fire in his soul and redeem the people of God. But Moses had to go through business, because he was overwhelmed with the trouble of his life, with the trouble he was going through. So he began to move from one bush to another bush, training the flocks, teaching them how to eat. But as he was moving from bush to bush, he left his fire in the bush. The fire that was in his soul was left in the bush. And as he was taking care of sheep to sheep, from one sheep to another sheep, teaching them how to take pasture, one day as he came somewhere, the fire he had left in the same bush, he saw that fire burning, and that fire was burning, and God was trying to say, hey, this is your original assignment. That fire was not a special fire, it was a fire from him that was left in the bush, because he has left the place of his original assignment. And God says, stop here, this is your fire, this is what you left because of the pressures of life. So many of us, because of the situations of our life, we have left our fire, we have lost our fire. Because of the battles of life, you have lost your fire. And God says, I can't do something new until you go back to the very place where you lost the fire. And when that fire came back on Moses, before that time, the rod was a normal rod. But when the fire came into him, the fire he saw in the bush came into him. That was why the fire, the God I know, is a consuming fire. He cannot stay on a bush and the bush is not consumed. The bush was not consumed because the fire was not for the bush. The fire was for Moses. But when that fire entered into him, God took over. I come to tell you, no matter what you left, where you left your fire, you are getting it back. The troubles of your life, the battles of your life that have taken the fire that God put in you years ago, those battles shall be swallowed up. Take your seat. It was a generation. We know the story. We know the story we just read. A generation. The Bible said the ark of God was captured. Listen to me. I'm sorry to say this. That in this our generation, the ark has been captured. So we see ministers of the gospel dying of disease. From the beginning, it was not so. The ark has been captured. We see genuine believers in the Lord who love God with so much passion going through the battles of life. Something it will not take a fragment of release of glory for that battle to be eliminated. But how can the battle be eliminated when the ark is captured? When the ark is captured, what we have in church is not service, it's rituals. Opening prayer, praise and worship, offering, tithe, testimony, choir administration, message, the grace. Praise and worship, open, testimony, tithe, choir administration, message, let's share the grace. Open prayer, praise and worship, choir administration, message, offering, tithe, let's share the grace. Open prayer, praise and worship. Motions, no power. Sir, the ark has been captured. So in the days when the ark was present, anything God takes over expands. Daddy, do you know why Ananias and Sapphira lied? Before they gave the land to God, it was a useless land. But as soon as they say we give to God, the person who wanted to buy it decided to buy God's land in a very expensive amount. The land appreciated as soon as it became God's own. That was why they said, some 50 by 100 for 500 million, we can't give church. Meaning the owners of the land had no value for the land. The man who bought the land knew that anything given to God is expensive. The ark has been captured. It's a function of our mind. You know, one time they met Jesus and they said, who is John the Baptist? They were expecting Jesus to say, is he a real prophet or is he a fake prophet? You know what Jesus said? The response of Jesus was found in Matthew 11:12, verse 7. He said, who did you go out to see? I can't answer you. It's what you think he is. That's what he is. Did you go out to see a prophet? If you went out to see a prophet, okay. Meaning no matter what I tell you, what you think is what it is. Who did you go out to see? A reed shaking by the wind? It's okay, but what went you out to see? A man, listen. A man clothed. So, in other words, no matter what I tell you, what you set your heart to seek is what you will see. If I tell you John was a prophet of God, John was a man of God, John was a servant of God, and in your heart you didn't go out to see a servant of God, you cannot get the virtue and the grace and the flow that is on the servant of God. Who did you go out to see? The ark! We can't have a woman leader. We can't have a man leader. We can't have a believer who loves the Lord. For years, they are battling for conception, battling to have a baby. When the Bible says children shall surround our table. The ark has been captured. Yeah, we got to tell ourselves the truth if we must get. The ark is captured because our walking with God is no more on the platform of the law for God, but what we want from God. That's what destroyed Saul. Saul was used to always hearing Samuel telling him what God was saying. He was used to spectacular. Tell me. So when Samuel died, he needed to hear something. He had to go to a witch to tell him. He went to the witch. Nobody's following what I'm talking about. He needed spectacular. So he had to go to the witch of Endor to tell him something. We are so interested. We want to know what God is saying. Meanwhile, we have done nothing.